Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on The Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to The Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together. The Plus Sides Podcast, because every story deserves to be heard, every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.
Alive on the moon, Mounjaro, it's on the pen alive, with your host David Knapp.
Thank you, Clap Tracking. Happy Thursday night. We got our TikTok friends in here tonight. So say hi to our TikTok friends. I hope you're all doing well tonight. I'm Dave Knapp, man on the Mounjaro. That's why I'm here. You are on the pen. That's why you're here. Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Mounjaro, Zepbound, Retatrutide in one of those clinical trials. Well, we got a lot to get into tonight on a special edition of On the Pen Live. So welcome to everybody who's here in the chat. Welcome to those who are watching over on TikTok. Welcome to those who are watching over on Twitter and Facebook. And of course, my favorite community, the community over on YouTube. Thank you for being here tonight. You are the best part of what I do. Well, tonight, as you know, is a big night because as I've been doing for some time now, for about a year, I've been covering the quarterly earnings call. In fact, I think this marks a year. This is the fourth one that I've done. We cover the all of the things about the quarterly earnings call that Eli Lilly has to share as far as it relates to GLP-1 medications, type 2 diabetes, and obesity medications. And there's a lot to get into tonight. So it's a special edition of the show tonight. Typically, one of the things that I will do that I'll keep kind of going tonight is I do segments, and I'm not going to do them all tonight, but I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping because there's a little bit about your boy that you ought to know this week because this was a big week in the life of Dave Knapp. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of housekeeping. You want mint for pillow? Big week in the world of Dave Knapp. I started a new job this week. So if you notice, there wasn't a members only live stream before the show tonight. It was all I could do. I was on the road, which is helpful. There's going to be a fair amount of travel within the state that I'm in. So every day I'm kind of driving around the state, visiting different people. I am selling X-ray supplies and medical devices to doctor's office, chiropractic offices, and veterinary offices. And so I'm very excited to have been starting that. It's so cool to be in a profession that is a little bit more closely aligned with where my heart and passion is right now. So thank you for those of you who have encouraged me over the last couple of weeks on that. But it has been a crazy week. And of course, it wouldn't be a week in the Knapp household without a virus hitting the house. My wife, of course, as is par for the course, is running through her second time of strep for the year. And so I'm hoping that I'm not picking that up, but I'm definitely feeling like I'm coming down with something. You may hear it in my voice a little tonight. So I'm here tonight to cover the live stream. We listened. So it's kind of cool. The guy that I started a job with, who's training me, has been with the company for about 7 or 8 years. But prior to that, spent 30 years as nothing other than a drug rep for a drug manufacturer. And so he and I have been bantering back and forth all week. He sold diabetes medications. So we have had a lot to share together. So it's been really fun to learn from him about the new gig, to learn the ins and outs of the new industry, but also to be able to share back and forth a little bit about Mounjaro and the channel and all of you. And so that's been really great too. So thank you for all the encouragement that you've given me over the last couple of weeks. And thank you for your patience as I've done a little bit fewer videos. And but this one is an important one as it relates to the channel. We always go over the Eli Lilly earnings calls. This is a big part of what we do here at Man in the Mounjaro, and I hope you've come to enjoy them. If you have come to enjoy them, please put it in the chat. Let me know that you've enjoyed them. Also, if you're new here, put an N in the chat next to your name. Let me know that you're new here. I would like to welcome you in here by name. Thank you especially to the members of the channel who are watching on TikTok and YouTube. The members of the channel, for only a couple bucks a month, you can do that on YouTube by clicking the link in the description. Join. You can do that on TikTok by clicking the little star up here. These are the things that really keep this thing going, right? So all the graphics, all the time put into this can't be justified without making a little money doing this thing and giving back to the community. So thank you for those who do that. Cindy is new. Welcome. I really appreciate you having you here. Andy Gal is new over on TikTok. Mama is new. And so thank you all for being here. It's so good to be with you here. So good to have the members here. Jessica, welcome over on YouTube. And for those who are joining new on Twitter and Facebook, I can't see your comments, but thank you for being here as well. So a little bit, Dink Dong is not new. Not at all. Thank you for being here, Dink. I appreciate it. And thank you for being a member. So the way that I've kind of organized these was a little bit of a thank you, Judy, who says she's glad that I enjoy my job. The way that I get into these conference calls in the past was that I would just kind of give it to you as they gave it to us in the conference call, but there's not a lot of order to it. So basically, we're going to talk about Mounjaro, Retatrutide, and orforglipron. That's what we've kind of come to do as a rhythm. And there wasn't a lot about Retatrutide or orforglipron in here. In fact, there was nothing that was really new. So there's very little to talk about those two medications, just a little bit. But as far as Mounjaro, we're going to talk about the supply. We're going to talk about obesity indication. We're going to talk about trial data. And then we're going to get into the Q&A, which was always an interesting thing to get into on the Eli Lilly conference calls. As always, as a point of order, the biggest super chat of the night gets to choose where I inject the 15 milligram dose. This is my injection night. I am a type 2 diabetic. I take 15 milligrams of Mounjaro to help control my type 2 diabetes. And the biggest super chat of the night always gets to choose where I inject my 15 milligram shot. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best part of the channel. You make this all happen. So let's get into it. The Eli Lilly earnings call was a fantastic earnings call. And there's lots of changes that are going on with Eli Lilly right now. So if you have been following Eli Lilly, you would know that they have announced a lot of structural changes in the last few weeks, which is very interesting because the most notable, at least as it relates to this channel, is the structural changes that Eli Lilly has made in the diabetes and obesity department. So Mike Mason, who has, I think I got that name right. I think it was Mike. I know it was Mike. I can't remember. I think it was Mike Mason, has been running the diabetes and obesity division. all the way through the launch of Mounjaro, right? Big job. So kudos to Mike Mason, who is now leaving Eli Lilly and will succeed the throne to Patrick Johnson, who had another position with Eli Lilly. But it's very interesting at this time to see Eli Lilly making structural changes as they build up towards what will probably be the largest, the most scripted medication for weight loss in history. And so we'll get into that tonight because everybody's question is always, what can we expect for the addition of Mounjaro to chronic weight management? So we'll get into that. We'll get into all the things everybody wants to hear. So let's get into the Mounjaro supply. And then at the end, by the way, at the end, we'll take some questions. So if you have questions, let me know what those questions are by putting a Q next to your question. And we'll do that, towards the end of the recap. So let's talk about Mounjaro supply. So if you've followed my channel, and this is another plug to make sure that you hit that like, hit that bell, hit that sub on YouTube, make sure that you follow the live creator over on TikTok, because virtually none of this information is new. I share it piecemeal as it comes out throughout the quarter in little videos. So chances are there's not much by the time we get to the earnings call. There's very few things in the earnings call that are actually breaking news, but everything that sort of happens in the quarter, they're going to touch on here. So most of these you've heard in little segment videos from me. If you haven't, you can go check them out to get further details. Just go back through my playlist and check it out. But wholesaler supply is strong in the US, and that's really important to know because as you've followed along with me, the FDA has updated their website to basically say that the supplies of all the different dosages of Mounjaro are no longer in shortage. So they're widely available. So if you're having trouble getting a hold of any dose, and mostly it's 10 at this point because that was the last one to come off the shortage. If you're having issues, just please call around to other pharmacies. Make sure you do the old tried and true trick of calling a hospital pharmacy. A lot of times they have access to different medications that maybe others don't because they're prioritized in times of shortage. But the wholesaler supply is strong. Wholesalers supply pharmacies who supply you and me, right? So if it's good at that level, chances are it's good at the levels below, right? So this is really, 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 really good news. As we know, there's been tight supply in the U.S., but as you'll see later in the call, it did not affect the profitability of Mounjaro going into the last quarter that we just completed, the third quarter. Research at Triangle Park, they call it RTP, but thank you for gifting the memberships to the dude. I really appreciate that. Welcome to the new members as it doles out those memberships. Research Triangle Park in North Carolina is a device manufacturer. So they're the ones that are manufacturing the pens. They're putting these together. And they have been saying all along, if you follow along with the conference calls, that the coming online of Research Triangle Park was really, really going to double the capacity of Lilly's ability to manufacture Mounjaro pens, right? So double the manufacturing capacity. So the fact that that's online, that's going, is a really, really, really good thing for the future supply as we look for a weight loss indication coming online very soon. Hey, if you're enjoying this, please consider liking it and sharing it somewhere. That would be super, super beneficial to help more people get in here. Different presentations around the world. So this is something that I've been covering for a couple of months now because I watched the FDA like a hawk. Thank you for the gifts over on TikTok. I appreciate that. You will know if you follow Man on the Mounjaro that there are single dose vial presentations. I've got pictures of them on a video that I did fairly recently, but those are launching in Australia. And also they'll be launching in the non-US markets as the weight loss indication comes on. A lot of people are concerned about the supply chain of Mounjaro and will they be able to keep up? Well, they're launching in other markets, but they're launching the single dose vials, which will eventually, as I said in a conference call, turn into the multi-dose pens, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But those have launched in Australia, and in the coming weeks, they'll be launching in other markets. They see the single-dose vials as a bridge, like I said, to the multi-dose click pens. So not this one, but something more like the pens that you are familiar with seeing from Ozempic, right? So as the supply goes, Eli Lilly sees the supply as being strong. There's a couple of questions that came later in the conference call when they opened it up for questions, as you know, they always do at the end. And we'll kind of touch back on this topic a little bit later. For the obesity launch, so there's no real news with the obesity launch. As they've said all along in the last 3 earnings calls, going back all the way to December, when they did the forward-looking call for 2023, they had always expected that Q4 towards the end of the year is when that obesity indication would come online for Mounjaro, Tirzepatide. I still believe that to be true. And if you wanted to say, give me a hard date about when you expect that to come, I'm going to say Thanksgiving plus or minus a week. That's always been my guess because that tracks with the same timeline that you saw for Wegovy when Novo Nordisk used the fast track authorization from the FDA, used a priority review voucher. It was 6 months. And so 6 months from the middle towards the end of May, which is about when Eli Lilly submitted this to the FDA, you're going to get to about Thanksgiving. So that is really no update, but everybody is going to ask, so I wanted to make sure that I included that in this in case you hadn't got that information before. So let's talk a little bit about the trial data. So you can go back over the course of the last 3 months, and you can check out a lot of really cool information that came out about the SURMOUNT 3 and 4 trials, which basically tested to see like how people did if they coupled diet and exercise changes before they got on Mounjaro and kept with it and then stayed on Mounjaro, or conversely, how people did when they went off of Mounjaro after they had lost a little bit of weight. And what these trials show, and you'll see this kind of reiterated later in the earnings call, is that you really need to stay on Mounjaro to experience the weight loss benefits that Mounjaro offers, right? It's fixing something metabolically, right? And so if you go off the drug, it shows pretty clearly in the clinical trial data from SURMOUNT 3 and 4, which they said that the full studies, we just got top line data from these trials, which basically means like the punchline, right? The really important thing from these clinical trials they've released, but there's a lot of granular data that we can extract a lot of value from. Those whole studies will be published in medical journals in the coming months. So that'll be exciting to kind of follow those and see what else can be gleaned from these. We got the top line data, and that's the data that really moves markets, right? And that's what these conference calls are all about. They're for investors. And so when you tune into these conference calls, really it's geared towards like, if you're an investor in Eli Lilly, this is why you can feel good about that investment, not only today, but looking into the future. And that's what these conference calls are 100% geared towards. This was the big news, right? Okay, so turn your volume up. Izam, thank you for becoming a new member. It's great to have you here. We really appreciate those who choose to give back to the channel in that way. If you are on YouTube, you can click join if you're on an Android, or you can click in the description of this video, and there's a little blurb about becoming a member. Click that. Just a couple bucks a month helps give that back to the channel. If you're on TikTok, you can click the little star up here. That gives back as well. Pug, welcome to the stream over on YouTube. So, this is the big news, in my opinion. And actually, I got this prior to the call, right? So I follow, you can't even possibly understand how closely I follow this stuff. But prior to the call, I got the information that we are finally seeing Tirzepatide, Mounjaro, being tested in higher doses. So a big question that people always have for me is, Dave, when they release Mounjaro for weight loss, will it be available in higher doses? And my answer to that has always been not right now. And the reason is because if you go back and you look at these SURMOUNT trials that we've been talking about for weight loss, you see that they followed the same dosing schedule as the diabetes version of Tirzepatide. So you didn't see things being tested at a higher dose. But now, and this is really, really awesome, if somebody in the chat can help Jeremy out asking about some side effects. The really interesting thing about this whole conversation is something that was shared to me today. So higher doses of Tirzepatide are being tested in patients with type 2 diabetes right now. But check this out. Pull up a thing, and it's another plug for watching this on YouTube because you would see the graphic here. I can't roll that on TikTok, but check this out. this is on healthcare.gov. You're probably not going to be able to see that too well, so I apologize for that. I'll do a video later. But if you go on healthcare.gov, where you would search for marketplace insurance, one of the very interesting things is that you can see Mounjaro when you look up whether the drug is covered. It's available on the marketplace at 20 and 25 milligrams, right? Do I think that's an indication that it will be available for the weight loss version? Probably not, but I do think this is an interesting piece of information. So we know now, based upon the select trials that Lilly announced in this conference call, that they are actually testing higher doses. So are higher doses coming? Yes, I believe they are. The reason I think that they're testing this with diabetics first is because it seems to be anecdotally that people who use Mounjaro strictly for weight loss, who are generally metabolically healthier than their diabetic or severe insulin resistant counterparts, or people with fatty liver disease, that they respond much quicker and earlier to the doses, where type 2 diabetics tend to take the higher doses to achieve weight loss, right? And even then, the weight loss is much less, 15% compared to about 22% in the non-diabetic counterparts. So I think diabetics are going to need, on average, the type 2 diabetics are going to need that extra dose, the higher doses, to achieve the kind of weight loss that their non-diabetic counterparts are. Now, some people have hypothesized that this may be a direct response to the increase in dosage. You see semaglutide. We talked about this months and months ago, probably 6 months ago. We talked about how Novo Nordisk is testing Ozempic at 3 times the normal dose, right? 7.6 milligrams, I think it is 7.6 milligrams, where the highest dose, I think right now, is like 2.4, something like that. Anyway, don't get me on the numbers, but about 3 times the highest dose now. Some people have hypothesized that this is like the counter reaction to that, and it may be, but I honestly think this is more about getting the diabetics to a closer amount of weight loss as their non-diabetic counterparts. That's what I think this is about. Furthermore, and sorry if I'm quoting you, but somebody made a great comment on YouTube today as well. And they said, I think that some people are maxed out currently on what Mounjaro is going to do for them. Again, everybody sort of responds differently. And that person is afraid that Lilly could potentially lose those customers to Novo Nordisk, trying to try out something new to see if it moves the needle. And that resonated with me, because I've definitely thought about trying semaglutide for the only reason that the 15 milligram has really maxed out what it's going to do for me weight loss wise. So perhaps switching may help. So I think that was a really good insight. But at the end of the day, I really think this was about getting diabetics closer to the amount of weight loss that the non-diabetics experience. And when you talk about potential side effects, and that came up later in the call, we'll gloss over that later. But I think that the interesting thing with that is that there aren't really super severe side effects. It seems like if you're somebody who loses weight really fast, you're somebody who also experiences more of the side effects. But the side effects are so mild with Mounjaro generally for people. Sorry if that's not you. I know that's not everybody, but generally people experience very mild side effects, especially compared to semaglutide. That's because Mounjaro acts on 2 incretin hormones, GLP-1 and GIP. And they surmise that the GIP component, they get into this later in the call as well, they surmise that the GIP component is something that kind of balances out and mitigates that side effect profile that you see with semaglutide, and also increases the efficacy compared to semaglutide. So that is the rundown on the obesity launch and then the trial data. The only other thing that I thought was really interesting, and this is where, again, it pays Donna with a $19.99 super chat. Thank you, Donna, for the super chat. You are so appreciated. Thank you for supporting the channel in that way. One of the really interesting things, I think, that is a plug for following Man on the Mounjaro, way back in July. Yeah, boy. I didn't see anybody else talking about this. Eli Lilly acquired a company. The name is escaping me. I think it's Versantis, but that might have been more recently. They've acquired so many companies in the last few months. They're printing money, so they're just gobbling up smaller companies that may help achieve better results with some of the medications they have. But they acquired Versantis. Sorry, that's what my note says. Versantis was a company that had a biologic called bimagrumab. And so I saw that they paid $1 billion for Versanis. I thought that was very interesting because that's a lot of coin to drop, because they say that the obesity market is going to reach $100 billion. So if you look at $1 billion spend, that's 1% of the market share of what they expect the obesity market to be by 2030. So that's a big chunk of coin to spend on a drug. But what is bimagrumab? So it's a monoclonal antibody treatment. Don't quote me on all this. Please do your own research. I'm just a guy on YouTube and TikTok. But what I remember of it from way back in July, and I think I covered this on a couple videos, was that bimagrumab is actually a monoclonal antibody that they started, Versanis started for cancer patients. And the whole point was to preserve muscle mass, right? So during treatment, preserving muscle mass is a really important thing, especially as you get older. Preserving muscle mass is a critical part of maintaining overall health. Thank you for those who are giving gifts over on TikTok. I appreciate it. And thank you for those who are giving over on YouTube as well. So appreciated. But bimagrumab, after I read about it a little bit, I did another video shortly thereafter. I think it was the same day. And I said, I think what's going on here is that they're going to pair bimagrumab and Tirzepatide. And one of the most interesting things to come out of this conference call is they validated that, right? They said that they are very excited as bimagrumab enters phase 2 trials to see how they pair that with Tirzepatide, so that as you lose weight, you're coupling it with another medication that helps you preserve that muscle mass. What do they always talk about with weight loss? They talk about how with weight loss comes some fat, comes some inflammation, but also muscle mass. And so if you want to preserve that muscle mass is key to burning fat. Having muscle is key to burning fat. So preserving that as you lose weight is very important. That's why they acquired this company. Super excited to see what the results come out when they start to pair Tirzepatide with bimagrumab. Now, the interesting thing that I've also covered for you nerds, if you're not a GLP-1 nerd, you may just want to tune out for a second here. But the really interesting thing about bimagrumab is prior to Eli Lilly acquiring Versanis, they actually did clinical trials pairing bimagrumab with semaglutide, the Novo Nordisk product. So even if this doesn't pan out, it may have just been a move to block Novo Nordisk, who knows? But we'll see, because as you know, some news has come out this past week where there's actually a clinical trial starting pairing Tirzepatide with another muscle mass producing drug. And you'll have to forgive me because I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It's been a very long week, but super, super interesting stuff nonetheless. You start to pair this drastic weight loss with preserving muscle mass. That means only the bad stuff is going, presumably. I mean, you could look at some other things as well, but would be a huge deal to be able to lose the kind of weight you can lose with Tirzepatide, with semaglutide, and preserve the muscle mass. So that is absolutely amazing. So that's the top line data from Dave on what's gone on with clinical trials over the last quarter. I think that's really, really, really exciting news. And again, you kind of have to be a nerd to appreciate some of this stuff. So thank you for the 90 nerds that are watching on YouTube. Thank you for the 80 nerds that are watching on TikTok. And thank you for bearing with me because I can't interact with the chat much as I'm going back through this recap. Thank you for being here. If you are enjoying this content, please consider hitting the like button. Smash that like button. There's a little love button on TikTok or on YouTube and TikTok. You can smash that, but share this somewhere with people who might find it helpful. We're getting there, Sergio. We're getting there. Yeah. And they didn't talk much about it, but they talked a little bit about it, and we can talk about it more. If you have questions, we'll take questions at the end. For a guy who's really tired from starting a new job this week, I got to tell you, it's amazing how much energy I get from this topic. I mean, this is just amazing stuff. I'm so passionate about it. I love it. I love it. And it gives me so much energy. So thank you for being here. And thank you for bearing with me as we go through all this information. So Retatrutide, what do we hear about Retatrutide? Well, not a whole lot. We'll just put, some context around what Retatrutide is. If you're new to the channel, if you're not new to the channel, Retatrutide. If you've heard about Retatrutide, let me know in the chat. But if you're new, Retatrutide Retatrutide, however they pronounce it. I don't even care. It's Retatrutide. Anyways, it's a triple agonist. So you had the old school GLP-1s. You had Ozempic, Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Byetta. Those are the old school GLP-1s. GLP-1 is the most prominent incretin hormone, and these basically mimic that hormone in your body, and they elicit a insulin response when your blood sugar is raised. They control the amount of sugar that your liver makes. They slow down gut motility. That's all the things they do, and they actually work in the pleasure reward center of your brain, some of them to actually make you feel more full, right? Mounjaro is superior to those drugs for one main reason, and that's that it's not only a GLP-1 agonist, but it is a GIP agonist, another prominent incretin hormone. What makes Retatrutide really exciting is that it acts on a third incretin hormone. GLP-1, like Ozempic, Wegovy, Byetta, Trulicity, Victoza, Saxenda, and it acts on GLP-1 and GIP like Mounjaro, but then it acts on a third called the glucagon receptor, and so it's the triple G: glucagon, GLP-1, GIP. So it acts on three, and so 3 is better than 2, 2 is better than 1, theoretically, right? And so that's what these clinical trials are trying to figure out, and that's Retatrutide. So it's entering the phase 3 trials right now for chronic weight management. So you will likely see Retatrutide for weight loss before you see it for diabetes, right? Which is the inverse of how you've seen every other GLP-1 that's hit the market so far. Every other GLP-1 has hit the market as a diabetes medication and then has garnered approval for type 2 diabetes. That's Victoza became Saxenda for weight loss. Ozempic became Wegovy for weight loss. Mounjaro is about to become presumably Zepbound or Lueo or some other name for weight loss. And then you have Retatrutide, which will actually come out as a weight loss medication and then likely later on get an indication for type 2 diabetes, although they don't think it'll be quite as strong as Mounjaro for glucose control. So anyways, I digress. So here's some of the cool other indications that you're going to see Retatrutide entering in, and this will help greatly with accessibility because as Retatrutide hits the market, they're learning really fast that they need other indications to launch at the same time. So there's broad access to it based upon what the insurance companies cover. So just a few of the clinical trials that are entering phase 3 as well for Retatrutide. So you have chronic weight management, right? Obesity, but then you have obstructive sleep apnea, you have osteoarthritis of the knee, and then you have cardiovascular disease. There's also studies being done on the liver and the kidneys. So you're going to see broader, once Retatrutide hits the market, presumably about 2025, you're going to see broad access because you're going to see it approved for multiple indications, which is super, super, super exciting when you think about accessibility. And Retatrutide's going to cost you some money. You're going to have to come out your pockets for Retatrutide. If you think Mounjaro's expensive, if you think that Ozempic and Wegovy are expensive, Retatrutide is going to be like ridiculous, right? But it'll be a blockbuster medication. So another plug for Eli Lilly. I am a Eli Lilly fanboy. If you haven't been able to tell, I am a complete Eli Lilly shill through and through. So that's what we learned about orforglipron or Retatrutide. What did we learn about orforglipron? Not a lot, but it comes up in the question, so we'll come back. If you want to know what orforglipron is it's a small molecule. So every other medication that's come out as a GLP-1 so far has been a peptide, a polypeptide. That's why they all end in tide. Tirzepatide, semaglutide, liraglutide, dulaglutide, exenatide. All these end in tide because they are long chains of amino acids that basically dupe your system into thinking it's GLP-1. So your body elicits these responses based upon that. So orforglipron is actually a small molecule pill. And there's only one other GLP-1 pill right now. It's called Rybelsus, and that's just the oral version of semaglutide. But it's like the gremlin of pills. Like it comes with a lot of rules if you're going to take it and have it work for you. Hey, if you're enjoying the stream, please put it in the chat. Let me know in the chat. I need to hear from you. I can't see you. I can't hear you. I got to see it in the chat if I'm going to draw off your energy. Let me know that you're enjoying this stream. Orforglipron is a small molecule. So it is not a peptide, which means it's very stable. So it doesn't come with all these gremlin rules like you can't feed it after 8 o'clock, right? So orforglipron is an excellent and kind of like a low-key white horse in this whole GLP-1 race, because it's going to thank you. I like to see this in the chat. Thank you for the feedback. Put it in the chat. I love to hear from you. It is a small molecule medication, and it's much more stable than the peptide version. So you're talking about a broad increase in accessibility to GLP-1. So when you talk about eradicating obesity, let's talk about eradicating obesity. Accessibility, because of the ability to manufacture orforglipron, the ability to manufacture it in mass and get it out to market, is going to be a huge game changer in the obesity fight, right? So let's hear it for Eli Lilly, because I think this is the most underrated GLP-1 in production, because you're not going to see the kind of weight loss with orforglipron that you're going to see with Mounjaro or Retatrutide, or probably even Wegovy once they release it at 7.6 milligrams. But you're probably going to see orforglipron hit the numbers that Ozempic and Wegovy low dose hit. And that's amazing, because not everybody wants to take a pill, or not everybody wants to take a shot. Novo Nordisk can't keep their you-know-what together enough to get pens in the hands of the whole world that's begging for it. And so when you talk about a small molecule pill that's easy to mass produce, and also harder for these bootleg jerks that are taking advantage of people who are desperate because they can't get access to the real stuff that's been FDA inspected, you're talking about a real game-changing medication. So low-key, orforglipron is one of my favorite drugs in development by Eli Lilly, and I think it's going to be amazing. All right. Let's get into the Q&A session, because the Q&A session was awesome too, right? So I tried to keep up with everybody's name, and I couldn't, but maybe some of them I'll drop because some are kind of funny. I tried to keep up with everybody's name who asked the question and where they were from and who they answered, but I didn't have a chance to go back and watch and listen a second time. So I just listened one time through. So Tim Anderson of Wolf Research, his questions were about the persistence of therapy, right? So that's industry speak. Again, I've had to interpret all this over like 4 or 5 conference calls. Like, what do they mean when they say that? Because everybody has to like sound smart. But basically, if I were to say obesity persistence of therapy was the general tone of his question, the way that I would say that in Dave Knapp speak is like, once people lose their weight, are they going to stay on the drug? That's the fancy way of saying it. So what he cited was the fact that with a lot of chronic illnesses, there's actually research on this, that up to 50% of people on a chronic disease treatment only adhere to the drug, only stay on it the way that it's prescribed for a year. And so they're saying, like, if again, this is for investors, right? So they're trying to settle down people who are investing gobs and gobs of money into an Eli Lilly stock that is like a balloon. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're just waiting for one bad thing to happen and it for to go. But hopefully that doesn't happen. There's too many good things happening for Eli Lilly. But basically, are people going to stay on it once they lose it? And of course, they went back to the Surmount 2 and 3 and 4 trials that we talked about earlier, where they showed that if people that went off it, by the numbers, most of them gained their weight back. And guess what? It didn't matter what they did with their diet. It didn't matter what they did with their exercise. If they kept that all the same, they still gained their weight back. If you have a chronic disease, and obesity is a chronic disease, and you stop the treatment that has halted your chronic disease, you lose the benefit, right? Hypertension. If you have high blood pressure and you're like, oh, I've been on high blood pressure medicine and now my blood pressure is good, I'm going to go off it. Guess what happens? Right? It's chronic disease. If you have rheumatoid arthritis, taking a biologic tamps down the immune system, stops the rheumatoid arthritis from eating up your bones. Hey, my arthritis is gone. I'm going to stop the drug. Guess what happens? The hyperimmunity comes back, eats at your bones again. You have to stay on a chronic medication to treat chronic disease. So what they basically cite is the Surmount 3 and 4 trials. We talked about that a little bit earlier. So this guy got 2 questions. His name was Seamus, which I think is great. If I have a 5th kid, that's going to be Seamus, Eli Lilly, or Forglipron Nap. But Seamus from Guggenheim, which I'm fairly certain is a made-up name. Seamus was probably Sue the Dude getting into the conference call, asking questions. But basically, this is an orforglipron question. So if you were asking, somebody was asking questions in the chat earlier about orforglipron, this is an orforglipron question. And basically was, they asked because orforglipron, Donna has been a member for 8 months. Congratulations. 8 months. How have I even been doing this for 8 months? I don't even know. But thank you for being a member. Thank you for being one of the best supporters of the work that I do. Thank you so much, Donna. For those of you who are members and subscribers on TikTok, click the little star up there. Members on YouTube, you get access to custom content, custom emojis. Put them in the chat, members. But in the description of the video, you'll find that. But orforglipron is in phase 3 trials, and a lot of these small molecule drugs have been tested by other manufacturers, and they've been concerned about elevated liver enzymes, right? And so this question was about the elevated liver enzymes and if they're doing anything in the clinical trials to monitor that. And basically, there was a clapback, a lawyer governed clapback, because you just know when they ask these questions, these guys are with lawyers. Like, that's why there's not video of this stuff. It's just garbled audio like it's 1984. Because these guys can't answer questions without lawyers, and I don't blame them. I mean, but just what a ridiculous world we live in. But they clapped back and basically said, this is what you've seen, and the numbers are normal, and we're not worried about it. So I don't anticipate that Eli Lilly is going to stop, or even specially monitor for elevated liver enzymes with orforglipron, but maybe something to keep on our radar, because we know that Big Pharma, not always 100% transparent and truthful. What a absurd and crazy comment to make, right? All right. Where are we at? That was Seamus from Guggenheim. He comes back. All right, let's talk about will oral medications, I didn't catch the name, will oral medications in fact impact the price of injectables, which is a valid question, right? So it's like, okay, so now I just went on a long diatribe about how orforglipron is going to increase accessibility and more people will get on GLP-1 treatments, and it's the dark horse. Well, will more people go on a cheaper pill, and will that impact the amount of revenue that you're going to see from the injectables, like in Eli Lilly's case, Mounjaro and Retatrutide, and even going all the way back to Trulicity, Trulicity came up a lot in this conversation, but Trulicity is a dinosaur at this point. It's a dying medication, and now they're just trying to, they don't want to lose the revenue, but it has the same pen. Do you think that they're taking these pens when there's a shortage of Mounjaro that sells at $1,200 a month, and then you have Trulicity, which is way less effective in about $700, $800 a month? Do you think that they're going to use the pens for Mounjaro or Trulicity? So, of course, the Trulicity supply is affected. I'm not going to cover a bunch of that because that's just obvious. But the answer to that was kind of interesting. So will oral medications impact the pricing of injectables? And Mike, who's stepping down as the obesity and diabetes guy, basically said that they don't see that happening within the diabetes market because orforglipron will probably hit the market as a diabetes medication prior to hitting the market as a weight loss medication. So, there's always other options available. When you talk about actually treating obesity, it's going to be Mounjaro, it's going to be Retatrutide, it's going to be high dose versions of semaglutide. And then from Novo Nordisk, and we'll talk a little bit about Novo Nordisk's call, but from Novo Nordisk, you got CagriSema, which is coming, which is going to be really cool too. Whew. I'm trying to get through this as quick as I can. It's funny because my videos end up being as long as the conference calls do, but I got a lot to say. So sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Let's talk about Jeff from Bank of America had a Tirzepatide supply question and said, how are they going to decide on additional manufacturing, how to allocate resources? And basically, Dave, who I think is I want to say Dave is the CEO, but it might be the president. I don't know. But Dave kind of hinted that there's a lot of things that Eli Lilly's doing that aren't announced. And so it was kind of like, you see all the things that we're doing. We got RTP coming online. We've got another innovation. What do they call it? Innovation Parkway, whatever they call that thing in Indiana. Terrence can chime in. But the Indianapolis site coming online, they've announced, actually, if you follow my channel, again, a plug to make sure you hit that like, hit that bell, hit that sub. If you're on TikTok, make sure you follow the live creator. We talk about this all the time. Hey, we got 6.2 thousand likes on TikTok. I think we can get to 10,000 easy. Hit that like, hit that bell, hit the sub, hit that like, hit that share. But you've got all this stuff that they have announced, and all of it's coming into fruition. Like, none of it is hitting speed bumps or roadblocks, which is amazing. So I feel really confident about where they are compared to Novo Nordisk. But they're basically saying, what I was saying is there's another thing that I announced last week. I did a video about that. They've actually brought on another manufacturer to actually manufacture more of the peptide itself, right? So we've talked about bringing on manufacturing facilities to make the pens, which I think is the biggest hiccup in the whole supply chain, is making these things. If you've ever taken one apart, they're very intricate things to take apart. Multiple springs, it's a whole deal, right? So manufacturing that is very difficult. Concord, North Carolina, yeah, that's where RTP is. And RTP, as I said earlier in the stream, is where they make these. But basically, they've announced a lot of stuff, and he's like, there's a lot of stuff that we haven't announced too. So really, really cool information kind of coming out. And they're just like, ultimately orforglipron could help ease some of that supply, but it's not something that we're relying on, because like we're doing a ton of stuff behind the scene. One of the lines that he used that I thought was really cool. Let's see if I wrote it down. Otherwise, I'll have to try to paraphrase it from memory. He said, "We're buying up as much capacity as humanly possible." I mean, like, what other comment could you expect coming from somebody who basically has every dollar at his possible expenditure to have? Like, we are buying up as much capacity as humanly possible. That was my favorite line probably of the whole thing. Laura, I don't know where she was from, but she's Mounjaro ex-US. So, which basically ex-US just means like markets other than the United States. Anat Ashkenazi, who I think is a CFO and maybe also acting in another role. There's a lot of structural changes within Eli Lilly. I really like Anat Ashkenazi. She is on it. But basically what Anat Ashkenazi said in this call was that the ex-US markets weren't as strong as they anticipated. But that's because they just launched the single dose vials in Australia. And I'm 100% sure that she was coached, or she probably wasn't coached. She's smart enough to say this, but I mean, they're not going to telegraph the fact that they have put everything they have had into making sure that there are no shortages in the US version of Mounjaro, because they don't want to do anything that could absolutely upset the apple cart as it relates to the indication for obesity. So thank you for the gifts over on TikTok. For those who give gifts, thank you for supporting the work that I do. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you, Shira. One of the things that I think is super, super, super exciting is that when you talk about the fact that Lilly has done everything that they possibly can do to mitigate the lack of supply in the United States. They made all the adjustments to the copay card, which is brilliant. Not only as a go-to-market strategy as a marketer, and you'll have to go back and check out the episode that I did with Kim from the Plus Sides podcast. Just an excellent back and forth between two marketers. But the fact that they clamped down on the copay card helped to ease the supply up. They had the word out. The fact that they've been able to control the supply in a time where there's just unprecedented demand. The FDA doesn't like to approve drugs for second indications when they can't keep up with supply for the first. And so they've done everything they can, including being able to launch in single dose in other markets with the single dose vials. It's just brilliant. And you look at Novo Nordisk, who is launching in other markets, and they can't even meet demand here. So Eli Lilly is the benchmark. They are, I mean, in my opinion, Eli Lilly is the absolute gold standard in how to run a major corporation. It just exudes excellence. So that was that as far as it relates to the ex-US markets. Underperformed there, but that's because they're trying to control the supply here. And once that indication comes online, they are ramped up and ready to go because they can crank out those vials all day. But they want to make sure they had plenty of the pens filled as RTP came online. What else do we got? Oh, so David had I don't know where David was from, but he had a really great question and great insight as far as it related to payers, meaning insurance companies, undervaluing the value of GLP-1s as it relates to Eli Lilly. That's obviously going to be Tirzepatide, Mounjaro, and Trulicity. And are they undervaluing, and are they missing the broader health benefits and how that positively impacts the bottom line for insurance companies? And this was really good from Mike. Mike, who answered, and he's the at least for now until the end of the year, I believe he is the head of the diabetes and obesity division of Eli Lilly. He had a really great response. He said, "We have a whole suite of evidence and trials, right? And that data is really, really, really compelling when you think about the fact that obesity has over 200 related comorbidities that go along with it." And this was some really interesting numbers. $200 billion in cost, right, for the comorbidities that come in with obesity as it relates to payers and insurance companies. And on average, there are for somebody who's obese, they require 2.7 times greater healthcare costs, right? So like you talk about GLP-1s bringing people back down into a normal BMI, getting rid of things like heart disease or the potential for heart disease, obstructive sleep apnea, arthritis. I mean, cancers, like 27 different kinds of cancers. You think about the ability to do that, and then all of a sudden it goes, the $500 a month that we're paying, and the negotiated price is probably even less than that, especially when you consider that these copay cards will continue on. I mean, it's totally worth it to these payers, right? So I think one of the things that he highlighted that's always important, and they talk about this in all the conference calls, but how important our voice is going to be in this. And that's where I need your likes, I need your shares, I need this to get out. We need to educate our friends about this, and we need to get fired up about it. I always like what Kim from the Plus Side says, and Janine and Lydia and Sabrina. We have to get loud about this, right? We have to get loud about this because we need to be impacting the people around us to understand this issue and how positively this could benefit the entire landscape of healthcare in the United States. So kudos to you, Mike. Really great answer. I haven't been like the biggest fan of Mike because I feel like he could have more excitement about the fact that they're developing like the most amazing drugs in the world, but he's probably tired from developing the most amazing drugs in the world. So thank you for your contribution to the cause, Mike Mason from Eli Lilly. Commercial coverage for the first couple quarters. This is a really good question as it relates to once it comes online for obesity. Like everybody's like, when's the day? When's it going to be approved for obesity? Well, that's not the day that it's going to hit the market for that indication. So like what's the difference? Mike said that they will ramp up access as they ramp up supply, and that he expects a Q1 launch. So Q1 of 2024 is when Lilly expects the launch to come. And that puts your boys' estimation of a FDA approval date of a week plus or minus Thanksgiving at pretty much spot on. That deserves a like, a share, a comment, a something, right? So I would expect Thanksgiving plus or minus a week. I've said this on 20 videos, but we'll say it again. Thanksgiving plus or minus a week. I think that's when you can expect that indication to come, provided there's nothing unforeseen. I mean, if they find something crazy, I reserve the right to rescind that. But But if everything goes according to plan, Thanksgiving plus or minus a week. Man, it's a little bit more to get through. Some clown asked about the higher doses of Tirzepatide. Could the trials of the higher dose, I guess it's a fair question, but it's dumb if you really understand what these medications are and how they work. He said, will higher doses of Tirzepatide risk that it could taint the franchise if people experience the side effects at the higher doses? And I think this is somebody who just looked at the black box warning, who looked at the pancreatitis stuff and goes, what if all of a sudden people pop up with this? Well, the reality is those are not likely to happen, right? I mean, pancreatitis you have is a common thing that happens in type 2 diabetics. It's going to end up on a warning for virtually any diabetic medication that they're testing in the diabetic population, because people are going to pop up as diabetics taking water pills. They're going to show up with pancreatitis because they're diabetic. The black box warning, we've been over that ad nauseum on this. That's in rats. It's never been observed in humans. So it's kind of a clown question, but I guess if you don't fully understand it, it's a fair question. And Mike said that the other thing, that the guy tried to tie this thing about Tirzepatide to Retatrutide and orforglipron, like, could that taint them as well? And Mike was just like, no, we have super high expectations of both Retatrutide and orforglipron, and the risk of something this was interesting, right? So if you listen to the language here, this was interesting. He said the risk of uncovering something marginally or something new in marginally higher doses, that's not going to happen. And so I think that's interesting because it's marginally higher doses. So when you talk about Novo Nordisk testing semaglutide at 3 times its current approval, I wouldn't expect that you're going to see 45 milligrams of Mounjaro. I think you're going to see maybe up to 30. I doubt you're going to see 45 milligrams because that would be 3 times the current highest dose. So I don't see 3 times as being a marginal. I think that's extreme. So I think you'll see, a 20 milligram, a 25 milligram, and maybe a 30 milligram. So that's where I'm at on that one. And he also said that the reason that they're testing this is because they don't believe they've hit the curve of like how much is so obviously you hit a certain point where more doesn't mean better, right? And they haven't hit that yet. Gosh, I don't know how much more of this is super pertinent to the stream, and I'm getting tired from yelling for the last almost hour. One other thing that was interesting, Seamus did come up and he said oral therapies could be used as maintenance. Is that their plan? And Lilly's response was basically, we see them as standalone medications, but of course they could potentially be used for maintenance. So you get to where you need to be from a weight standpoint on Tirzepatide or on Retatrutide, you can definitely consider maybe orforglipron as a maintenance dose, right? Makes sensey. So this was the other interesting thing, and I touched on this a little bit earlier in the stream, where Tim, and I don't know where Tim was from, but he had a question about the GIP agonist versus antagonism. So if you don't know about this, GIP, so like I said earlier, Mounjaro acts on GLP-1 and GIP, right? 2 incretin hormones. It mimics 2 incretin hormones in your body. One of them is GIP. But did you know that there's other medications that are testing GIP antagonism? And I can't remember what they are. Maybe it's the pemvidutide or one of those medications. But actually, so all these are agonists, meaning that they act on the receptors of GLP-1 and GIP in your body, and they basically stimulate those receptors to perform what they perform, right? Whether it's delayed gastric emptying, reducing the amount of sugar your liver makes, making you feel full in the brain, whatever. This is an antagonist, meaning it says make less of it. So they found GIP has always been this weird thing in the medical community because they sometimes see positive benefits from agonizing it and antagonizing it. And an interesting response from Dan, was it Dan? Yeah, I think it was Dan. And I can't remember what Dan's title is, but he said more than anyone, profoundly different effects. More than anyone, they've studied this at Eli Lilly. And he said profoundly different effects in efficacy and tolerability, meaning that when they added the GIP agonism with Mounjaro, they saw less side effects than just the GLP-1 and semaglutide, and they found better weight loss, better glucose control as well. So they're hitching their wagons to GIP agonism, right? And it also, he expects that the antagonism over time will show that it's less likely to accomplish the same results, right? So, oh my gosh, I got through all of it. That's the comment of the night, Cheryl. 100% that is an accurate statement. So thank you for bearing with me as I've gone through all of the amazing news. Kind of put all of the Eli Lilly conference call, which lasted 1 hour, which is exactly how long this has lasted. But I hope that I made it GLP-1 centric, and I hope I made it make sense in my own way. If it has, put it in the chat. Let me know. I'm ready to take your questions. Toxic Fandom said, did they address their competition supply issues? Kind of, right? So I'm having to remember back to 8 o'clock my time this morning, which was when this was. So this was over 12 hours ago, and I had a full 10-hour day of work. But I believe they kind of did, and it was more of like all of the things that you've experienced with Mounjaro shortages are impacted by the fact that Novo Nordisk fumbled Wegovy. So they did touch on that, but I've noticed in all the conference calls, whenever a question is brought up about a competitor, it is immediately juked back to a conversation specifically about Eli Lilly. And I think that's true across the board corporately, whoever's conference call you're listening to. Don't spend a lot of time talking about the competitors, but put it in the context of how it affects their business and then kind of moves on. Thank you, Jen, for watching on Facebook. I appreciate that. Yeah. So other questions. Thank you for helping me hit 12,000 likes on TikTok. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for those who have given gifts. If you're interested in becoming a member or a subscriber, please consider that and giving back to the channel in that way. I am going to have no voice left for tomorrow. 50 million people on MJ, assuming that's 200 million pens a month. How do they keep up? Yeah, well, they are. I mean, they're not in shortage right now. They keep up by launching in new markets with single dose vials. You'd be amazing how efficient these manufacturing plants can go, especially when they launch in new markets and they don't have to do the pens. Then they're just literally shooting a medication into a single dose vial. They're going to be bringing on more third-party vendors too. And like I said earlier in the stream, that they're bringing on people that they're not even telling us about right now. So, which I think is very interesting. A lot of things in the works. Other questions? Does anybody have any other questions tonight? Thank you to Donna, who gave the biggest super the chat of the night, who is going to choose where I inject this 15 milligram Mounjaro pen tonight. Donna, if you're still here, unless anybody wants to top that $19.99, Donna will choose for, I believe, the third or fourth week in a row where I inject this. So thank you, Donna, for your $20 super chat. Any other questions I can answer? Teresa, thank you. Deborah said, are there any plans for single dose vials in the U.S.? I didn't get the vibe that there was plans to do that, and I wouldn't expect it. I think where you may see the single dose vials in the United States is if they launch for obesity and then they hit the shortage list again. Then I think you may see it, especially for diabetics, right? Because diabetics, especially older diabetics, are used to drawing up a medication. I think you'll see that it becomes available for diabetics in single dose vials. That's my prediction. When it's not covered, let's see. I love how they dodge so many questions. I mean, Tay, yeah, that's par for the course, right? Like I said earlier in the stream, I think what you see is a lot of people, they don't put this on video, right? There's a reason why you can't watch it on YouTube. It's because they don't video it. That's because there's a lawyer in each one of their ears every time a question's asked, because there's a lot of concerns about insider trading and, just a whole host of things that could open the company up to exposure. So there's a lot of dancing around that goes on in these calls. So you have to decipher a lot of things. That's why your boy does it for you. Donna says the abdomen. All right, we'll make sure that we shoot this in the abdomen. Unless anybody wants to beat that 1999 super chat. Thank you for that. Sue has a question. Where does a couple from Vegas and a Dominican Republican go to honeymoon? Detroit. A nod to our friend Pug on Mounjaro. So Pug, I don't know if you're still here, but our friend Pug on Mounjaro was married this past week. Congratulations to Pug and his new lovely bride, his beautiful bride. Thank you for being a part of the Man on the Mounjaro on the pen community, Pug, and we are so happy for you. They keep a lot hush hush because they don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. That's absolutely the case. Yeah, they definitely don't want to. Let's see. Mounjaro is now available in Canada. Yep, we covered that a couple weeks ago when we had Dr. Dan on. So thank you for Dr. Dan for coming on. Your boy on to pin. That's right. That's right. Any other questions I can take before we wrap this thing up tonight? I really appreciate y'all being here and bearing with me through this very long-winded recap of the Eli Lilly conference call this week. After 4 months, I just had to get another PA for MJ. Thank God I had extra help. Good for you, honey bunny. Glad you got it. Did they say anything about a new coupon for 2024? They didn't say anything about a new coupon for 2024. Really, the only thing they said about the coupon is that nothing was going to change, but that's for Mounjaro, right? So when this is released for weight loss, I fully expect that there will be a coupon. They're going to be trying to get access to people, especially early on when there's not a bunch of payers paying for the scripts. There's going to be a good coupon for the weight loss version of Tirzepatide, but I just wouldn't expect that it's going to be the $25 heyday that you saw back in November of last year. Will they do higher doses for Mounjaro for weight loss? We covered that earlier in the stream. I don't think so, but they are testing it currently in phase 2 trials. Was it phase 2 trials? I believe it was a phase 2 trial for type 2 diabetes. They're testing them at higher doses. They broke $1 billion in quarterly sales for Mounjaro. Yeah, they went from like 944 million last quarter to a 1.2 billion. And that's like with less scripts being doled out because fewer and fewer people are on the coupon card, but they're just making more money off of each script. I didn't get into that too much today because I don't feel like that's super relevant to people who are on the pen. But yeah, Lilly's making more money per script, which is obviously their goal. And that deals with the copay card going away. The good one. Sue, what'd you say here? Sorry, I missed you, buddy. Has it been given a new name for weight loss? Not officially, right? Zepbound is what we think it's going to be. That's courtesy of Dr. Albert. I think maybe Lueo. I think Zepbound. There was something that they said in this that made me think. My theory about Zepbound was that it probably will be the name because of its patent of domain name holding by Lilly, but Lueo might be it as well. I think Zepbound could possibly be a campaign to put pressure on payers to add Tirzepatide to their formularies, right? And so I think Zepbound might be a program from Eli Lilly rather than the name of a medication. And so maybe you'll see Lueo as the name of the medication and Zepbound as something that is a more of a campaign, a website, a resource. Betas. Yeah, we'll find out in a few weeks for sure, right? Absolutely. And definitely by the next conference call. Right. One of the other things that was interesting that they did in this call, I didn't cover this in my notes, but it was notable. Last year, they did their forward. So at the end of each year, companies tend to do a forward looking call. So not an earnings call, but basically like, here's what we did in 2023 and here's what we go and do in 2024. And last year, and historically, Lilly's done that in December. They pushed that out to January. And people were like, is that because you don't think you're going to get the weight loss indication from Mounjaro and you don't want to answer that question in December? And Anat Ashkenazi's answers was like, no, we don't think that's going to happen. It's just that we want the fuller picture of what happens and I think that's legitimate. Like if the indication comes in November, they need the month of December to focus on the launch and get the launch right. And then in January, they can come back and say, hey, we had a really great launch of Mounjaro for weight loss. Here's what you can expect in 2024. So I think that was legit. Totally. Lindora now offers GLP-1. I don't know what Lindora is, but presumably a weight loss company or something. All right. We're going to take this in the abdomen. Wow. I don't know if y'all caught that on video, but it dripped. Like there are multiple drips and then there's a drop. I don't know that I've ever seen that happen before. All right, we're going to, in the abdomen. Listen. Dunzo, Washington. Thank you all for being here tonight. I really, really, really appreciate you being here tonight, sticking with me. If you've enjoyed this and you want to do me one little favor, hit that like button, share this somewhere with somebody who might find it helpful. And then come back on YouTube when we're done with the live and leave a comment there. I would love more and more people to see this. Share it, somebody, but definitely hit that like button if you're on YouTube. If you're on TikTok, thank you for being here tonight. It's been great to have you all here. Why is this pen ticking? Yeah, it did kind of make some funny noises, didn't it? We'll see how this week goes, right? Thank you all for being here. You're the best part of this channel. I really, really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for Donna for the fourth week in a row being the biggest super chat of the night. Thank you for Sue the Dude for giving them memberships. Y'all are carrying this channel, so I hope next week some people help them out. And definitely thank Sue and thank Donna in the chat. Thank you on TikTok for those who gave gifts tonight. Toxic Fandom, I think I see that you gave maybe some gifts or Freedom Variant. Thank you, Visible Scientist. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you all for being here tonight. You're the best part of what I do here at Man on the Mounjaro. I can't wait to see you again here next week. Hopefully I'm feeling a little bit better. It'll be the second week into the new job, so I'm excited for that. Thank you all. One thing I'm going to leave you with tonight, one of the best Halloween costumes. This comes from my friend Courtney, who is on the pen, and also a personal friend who watches the show. She sent me this from Facebook. This was a Halloween costume. A deflated sumo costume, 2 weeks on Ozempic. I thought that was pretty funny. I hope that you all have a great week. I hope that you all are a bunch of losers this week, right? Who says that? Cheryl? Is Cheryl the one that coined that? You're all a bunch of losers, and you're going to lose a bunch this week. And even if you don't, you're going to come back here next week and get a bunch of encouragement. Thank you for being the best part of this channel. Thank you for being such an encourager of me and the work that I do here at Man on the Mounjaro. I really appreciate each and every one. We will catch you next week.